Quiero que vean la multitud de personas que se han juntado aquí. Saludos, raza, saludos a todos, buenas tardes, donde quiera que nos están viendo. Estamos transmitiendo desde Los Ángeles, California, downtown LA.
I didn't know my body hurt as much as the car's open it should have.
Our shit. Our shit. Saludos, saludos, donde quiera que nos estén viendo, gracias por estar aquí, se les agradece de corazón, compartan los en vivos para que el mundo se dé cuenta de lo que unidos podemos hacer. No se preocupen, ahorita los vamos a alcanzar de nuevo, ahorita nos vamos a ir, ahorita les enseñamos. No sé si escucharon que alguien pasó a saludarnos. Gracias, gente, por estar aquí. Necesitamos que el mundo se entere de lo que está pasando, del crimen que están cometiendo. Sí, era la tía. Tienen buenos oídos. Necesitamos que el mundo se entere del crimen que están cometiendo contra la humanidad. Sí, esta tía que acaba de pasar. ¡Ánimo, raza! ¡Ánimo!
As a small business owner, a million things can keep you stuck in the office, like building the schedule, dealing with timesheets.
This was a global incident that occurred, and then getting all of them interviewed, re-interviewed, because some conflicting interviews, you're going to have to go back to the initial, what you thought was a solid interview, and then look at other data. Now you have technology, you have cameras, you have body cameras, cell phone cameras, you have witnesses, you have all involved employees. Then you got to go back and look at the past steps or the involved persons, the victims, the suspects, the involved employees, and you got to look at all of their past connections, contacts, and all of that will be attributed into a final executive review. The complexity of this and the seriousness of the quality of this investigation is right now probably one of the highest priorities, both in the city of Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota, as well as the federal government. They got to get it right. They got to take the time. They got to remain focused on facts, no opinions, no feelings, no thoughts, true facts. Data can complex this style of investigation, but initially that information will all come forward in a complete review.
We've been looking at footage on the screen here. It is not live. I need to be clear. This is a ground vantage point. This is Skyfox's vantage point as demonstrators were moving through the streets of Minneapolis earlier this afternoon. The protests in Minneapolis have swelled. They were smaller earlier in the week, but as many of us assumed, once people don't have work the next day, once it gets into these Friday nights and these Saturday afternoons, that's when we tend to see the biggest turnouts at these types of things. We did see arrests. We saw clashes with officials in Minneapolis. In fact, Minneapolis police said that there was ice thrown at an officer and snow thrown at an officer. I believe there was one minor injury to a law enforcement officer. Many arrests being made last night, Friday night. As we continue our coverage tonight, Jeffrey, we're going to be looking out for protests taking place on the West Coast. As we move into the later hours, we're going to be looking at cities like Seattle, Portland, Los Angeles, possibly. What are the most effective de-escalation tactics that not only police can use, but people that are turning out to these protests? What is the most effective and safe way to go out and protest, but to protest and make sure that you're doing it safely?
Two sides to this response. The first, let's do the agency side. So we're going to talk specifically about law enforcement. If law enforcement has advanced their communication capacities, like, our company has long-range acoustic devices, this is crystal clear communication for miles. So there's no misunderstanding as to what the directions, instruction, and the orders are from law enforcement. When those LRAD systems are deployed, it's extremely easy to understand what the police are telling you. And as a responder, a citizen, an activist, or a protester, what you need to do to stay safe, not get in trouble, and not be affiliated with a troublesome group that could be roaming around in packs. So that's the agent side. Let's talk about the community side. Always adhere to the common areas of walking, protesting, and marching. And then if you see an agitated group, and these do occur in various spots in these protests, stay far away from the agitation group because more than likely an escalation of force, whether it's tear gas or pepper balls or other instruments, are going to be deployed. Anytime you see a mounted patrol unit, those are hard line defenses. Do not cross the mounted patrol unit because that one animal can push easily 10 to 12 people. You have a strong possibility of getting injured. So there's an agency response and a responsibility. Then there's also a community and a citizen acceptance that has to take place when you want to go forward in this. And of course, communication among all parties is absolutely essential. That's why you need to have the organizers work collectively with local law enforcement and the persons responsible because you're going to have a much more positive interaction and kind of like the rules of engagement before you go marching. It's going to be stay safe and be in connection with your family.
We can't thank you enough for taking the time. Jeffrey Halstead is the spokesperson for Genesis, which is an emergency communication technology company. He's also the former chief of police for the Fort Worth Police Department. Have a good rest of your weekend. Thanks.
Thank you, Austin. I appreciate it.
Of course. All right, the time in the nation's capital just past 7 p.m. Let's hit a quick break. Our coverage continuing in a moment.
Ahorita a correr, a seguir los demás. Vamos casa, acompáñenme.
Well, good morning, everyone. We wanted to come out here and provide a situational update and make sure everybody understand both what happened in the last couple nights and also where we're going here moving forward. I wanted to acknowledge how inspired I am by so many community members that have stepped up. They've been providing food to people that have immigrated to Minneapolis. They've made sure that those that are terrified right now of the actions by ICE have support, have love, have care, are able to get to the grocery store, even childcare. The way that they have stepped up is amazing. I also want to acknowledge that the vast majority of people have protested peacefully, recognizing that I have seen community members sort of step into the breach, recognizing that there are others out there, agitators that are trying to rile up large crowds. And not only have they not taken the bait, they have pushed others back from the brink to say, hey, you know what? This is what Donald Trump wants. He wants us to take the bait. He wants those agitators to get a hold of this crowd in a way that it makes them cause harm to others and or damage to property. And so to them, I want to say my deepest thanks. We are so grateful for everything that you've been doing. And to our first responders, to our police officers, Chief O'Hara, to our firefighters, Chief Rucker, they have been working tirelessly. They have canceled all days off. They've made sure that they are out here protecting people, keeping them safe, and showing a true juxtaposition between the kind of public safety and service that we provide to our residents here at the city of Minneapolis versus what ICE is doing. And so, again, I am inspired by so many community members that have kept the peace and that are making very clear the message: we cannot take the bait. To the few that have caused damage to property and or harm to others, need to be very clear, we're not going to let that happen. If you cause damage to property or put others in dangers, you're going to be arrested. And again, the vast majority of people have done this right. We are so deeply appreciative of them. But we have seen a few incidents last night. Those incidents are being reviewed. There were approximately 29 arrests that were made that Chief O'Hara will provide an update on. But we wanted to, again, give sort of the overarching theme of what we're seeing, which is peaceful protest. And we wanted to say when that doesn't happen, of course, there are consequences. We are a safe city. We will not counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of chaos here. We in Minneapolis are going to do this right. Chief O'Hara is going to now provide an update. Thank you, Chief, for all your work.
Good morning. My name is Brian O'Hara, BRIAN_OHARA. I am the Minneapolis Police Chief. The Minneapolis Police Department has been monitoring a number of marches and protests and other First Amendment activities over the course of the week. All of those protests and marches have remained peaceful until last night. Last night at about 7 p.m., there was a gathering outside the Canopy Hotel in downtown Minneapolis. That gathering began as all the other gatherings around hotels had been conducted over the last several days. Largely peaceful, mainly a noise protest that was occurring, trying to disrupt the activities at the hotel. Unfortunately, that changed last night. Individuals at the canopy then began marching on Washington Avenue towards the Depot and the Renaissance Hotel. While they were there, some individuals broke off from that group, and in the rear, they caused some damage to that hotel, damage to some of the windows and some graffiti damage. They then returned to the Canopy Hotel, where the Minneapolis Police Department responded with well over 200 police officers, Minnesota State Troopers, and Minnesota DNR police officers. We initiated a plan and took our time to de-escalate the situation, issued multiple warnings declaring an unlawful assembly, and ultimately then began to move in and disperse the crowd. It was well over 1,000 individuals, we believe, that were assembled there. And as those individuals broke off from the crowd, we had some others that then continued downtown. Ultimately, by 1 a.m., all of these individuals were either dispersed or placed under arrest. There were 29 arrests last night. We are aware of one police officer that was injured from a chunk of ice that was thrown at them. Other than that, we are not aware of any other injuries. I just want to say I'm incredibly proud of the police officers in this town and the state law enforcement officers and all the other police that have been here with us through this. What you saw last night was a disciplined and restrained response. I think it was highly professional, and I'm thankful for the members of the community who understand our need to keep things peaceful. And I'm thankful for those officials and others that are continuing to call for peaceful protest and assembly. Obviously, there's a number of additional marches and protests that we will be monitoring today, and we are fully prepared if things cross the line and become unlawful to make additional arrests if necessary. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll open it to questions. I'll go here and then here.
Give us an idea, what are you seeing in terms of immigration? ICE, CBP, where is it happening?
I'll turn it over to Chief O'Hare for a little bit more of an update. The question is, what kind of immigration enforcement are we seeing in the city? I'll start by mentioning the immigration enforcement that is taking place is not limited to Minneapolis. It's in our entire region, St. Paul, St. Louis Park, Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center. We're seeing in a number of different areas throughout Minnesota. And as far as I can tell, it's happening all times of the day. I'll let Chief O'Hare give a little bit more of an update. A lot of it is scattered. A lot of it is unplanned. This is part of the issue, is that this is not a coordinated strategic plan that we're seeing being carried out. In many cases, it's indiscriminate. You know, I've said this before, but I think that the initial impetus to come to Minnesota was go to Minnesota, arrest and deport a bunch of Somali people. And then they get here and they realize that the Somali people that would be arrested or deported are all legal. They're American citizens. You can't do that. And so there's not like some meatpacking plant or factory where you can go and get a bunch of Somalis. And then they turned their ire towards our Latino community and other immigrant communities that are here. Regardless, these are communities that make Minneapolis a better place. And so to have this kind of scattered buckshot approach that we're seeing that is not strategic in any way, not only endangers these community members that have been here for the long haul, it endangers these neighborhoods that they're rolling through. Minneapolis is on a great comeback, and they're just making it more difficult for that comeback to fully take shape. And so I'll turn it over to Chief O'Hara.
I'm sorry, what was the initial question?
So the question was, can you tell us what some of these immigration enforcement actions
the actions.
like?
So the actions are widespread across all parts of the city, mainly focused on the south side and in some cases northeast part of Minneapolis. There are oftentimes what appear to be arrests made from vehicles, and we have had reports that come in of vehicles that are abandoned that we then have to respond to tow the vehicles. At least in one case, we had a report of a person taken from a vehicle that the vehicle was not even placed in park, and the car rolled, blocking the roadway, and we had to respond and tow it. Another instance, I remember there's a vehicle that was left in the roadway with a dog inside, that we had to respond with animal control and take custody of the dog. So it's a number of actions that are occurring on the city streets, and they are happening all over the city.
Did you tell them about the one on 3rd Avenue? Just to give you another example of how reckless some of these actions are, maybe 12 blocks from here, 10 blocks from here, over on 3rd Avenue, there was an ICE action that took place. An individual from a car that was in the middle of a pretty significant street was detained. They left the car in the middle of the street. The car wasn't even in park, and so you've got this vehicle that is just rolling down the street with nobody in it. And it wasn't a Waymo. This was a car that was rolling down the street that could have hit anybody, including my own family members that live not too far from there. And so this is not about safety, clearly. If this was about safety, you wouldn't do stupid things like that. Somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody has gotten killed. And so that's not the route as to how you do any of these exercises productively or safely. And so that's what we're saying. Yes.
Looking ahead tonight for night 5, ICE isn't leaving. DHS is sending more officers. How concerned are you about temper spraying, people getting tired, exhausted, and being concerned about that?
Yeah. I mean, concern, of course, is the name of the game. We are constantly monitoring what is taking place, not just the actions on the street, but also the energy of our police officers, our firefighters, our first responders that in many cases haven't gotten a whole lot of sleep. They're working really hard right now. So, I mean, I just think it's common sense that, you know, anybody, if you're tired or you're hungry or you're sick or you're forced to make a split-second decision when you're tired or you're hungry or you're sick, you're more likely to make a mistake. We don't want mistakes being made. And so I'm so appreciative of their work. I'm really grateful for it. And again, I want to reiterate this. I am really grateful for so many community members. I saw this video, I think it was yesterday, where you had this agitator clearly from the far right that was coming in and trying to rile up the crowd. He was trying to make the crowd do something that they shouldn't be doing. He was trying to make the crowd take the bait so that they would give the authorization or at least an excuse for the Trump administration to come in even more. It was so awesome that not only was the crowd not taking the bait, they were basically blowing them off. They were grinning down the bear. And I think that is emblematic of what's happening in Minneapolis right now. We are grinning down the bear. We are meeting a whole lot of despair with a lot of hope. We are doing right. We are being strategic. And yes, for those that aren't being strategic, for those that are taking the bait and causing property damage or otherwise, there are consequences. We're holding the line here all the way.
Related to the shooting, I understand the officer, the ICE officer was shot, was treated at a hospital. Can you elaborate a bit on the nature of that, any injuries, where he was treated, when he was treated, how medical care?
I think you're referencing the ICE agent, and I don't have any information on that. Do you? No, we don't know.
Chief Rivera, I was just wondering, there are some people online who are frustrated that they thought Minneapolis Police Department left the scene of the protest last night. Of course, you guys came back and the state police came as well. Can you describe to us the strategy behind when you're not present at those protests and when you decide to come in?
So this is a fine line that we have to walk. Because unfortunately, there's a whole lot of people that once we inject ourselves into a situation, then want to turn their frustration and their anger on us.
Howdy, everyone.
So
Can you guys hear me okay?
We act very strategically with restraint. We take our time to ensure that we have sound tactics, a good plan, and move in and keep the safety of law enforcement as well as the safety of community in mind. What happened last night at one point was we still have everything else that happens in American City.
Okay, this is a live view from Los Angeles. I do not have audio on this live feed. I just got tired of listening to the Minneapolis guy. He's kind of annoying. Hey, it's Savage. How are you? No, I muted so you guys could listen in on this. This particular video does not have audio.
We did not have additional destruction. So it is it is quite literally almost
Okay, now moving back to
every sworn member of the department.
these three pelicans.
The question was getting 911 calls specifically about immigration enforcement, and yes, there's just dozens and dozens every single day, ranging from anything from people seeing arrests happening, or they seeing surveillance, or they seeing individuals that they're not sure that are ICE, to the things that I mentioned, that there's cars that are now left abandoned because someone was detained.
We'll do one more. She's been had her hand up. Yeah.
Sarah, from the Christian Science Monitor, what is the status of both of your offices' communication with DHS?
So the question was the status of communication with DHS. We have ongoing communication with all of federal law enforcement in Minnesota, and that's because we do have work
family in Cuba that they're hoping one day can come here. And you know what? Those people have one universal thing. They love this country.
This guy's funny.
They love this country. They love America. That's why Miami used to be
His background
blue.
is cool. I need to
Guess
figure out
what?
how to do that.
Miami is ruby red. Miami, Florida. One of the few places in the country where you can go and all the street signs are in Spanish. I love it over there. It's neat. It's great. It's kind of like visiting another culture without a passport. But the neat thing about it is those Cubans are more patriotic than any of my white friends are. They all got flags in front of their house. They all got stickers on the back of their truck. They love Donald Trump. They love this country, and they love democracy and capitalism and republic, whatever you want to call it. They love it all. They absolutely love it. And so when I see people out there yelling racist and pointing and stuff like that, I'm like, you have no idea what you're even talking about. You have no idea what you're even talking about. You wouldn't know real racism anyway, because real racism is what you guys do when you make race the bottom line of every point you're working on. You make race the reason for the season. And I get so sick of that shit. We don't need that. Okay? The whole idea is we shouldn't be looking at each other according to what color we are. We should be colorblind. And we can't be colorblind as long as the left is constantly reminding us that we're all different colors and we're all treated differently. It's the right that wants to be where we are now. It's the right that says, look, let's all go out. Let's all make it big. The left is the one that goes out and says, oh, you're the wrong color. You couldn't possibly be successful. Hell, you're the wrong color. You can't even be expected to have it.
Hey folks, so they do have maps of the protests. I'm trying to find one that's not stupid looking, and I'll bring it up. These guys on Fox are going to come back. Right now, there's kind of a hodgepodge of protests going on. I'm also going to try and see if I can find some footage from Iran, because it's been pretty interesting what's happening over there. So. And yes, the Turbo Boost Espresso will absolutely send you to the bathroom about 2 hours later. All right, I'm going to unmute this and let you guys listen in on this.
At Albuquerque, New Mexico, a chilly 36 degrees out there in Albuquerque. As we go to a break, take a Live Now look at Albuquerque. This Live Now look is sponsored by 1-800-BATTERY. We'll be right back in just 2 minutes. And by the way, 1-800-BATTERY and their QR code right there in the bottom hand portion of your screen. Again, Albuquerque, New Mexico, the time, Mountain Standard Time, about 5:30. Let's hit that commercial break. Our coverage continuing in a moment.
This is footage of the Iranian embassy. The protesters were able to get in. They threw the Islamic flag to the floor, and this dude who's crawling across the windows actually put up the old Persian flag.
Iran's supreme leader has accused protesters of ruining their own streets to please Donald Trump. That's as violent unrest across the country continues to spread. Overnight, protests continue to rage. One prosecutor in Tehran had warned of a violent crackdown on protesters, saying some could face the death penalty. The regime has responded with a full security lockdown and a nationwide internet blackout. President Trump has said that the Ayatollah is preparing to flee, potentially to Russia. Are we witnessing the fall of the Iranian regime? Joining me now is Director of the Association of Anglo-Iranian Women in the UK, Layla Jaziri. Layla, thank you so much for joining me. Incredible scenes in Iran from what we are managing to understand what's going on out there. There obviously is a blackout now. Bring us up to date. What's happening?
Thank you for having me on. Yes, after Khamenei's message, in fact, despite this message, despite killing, despite having nearly total internet blackout to conceal atrocities, and even after deploying Arabic-speaking mercenaries from Iraq, the uprising has continued and has grown even stronger in its resolve. At present, the protests have
Being a pro doesn't start under the lights. It starts in the
spread across Iran, across 180 cities. 54 people have been killed. They are chanting, directly targeting the supreme leader, down with the dictator, down with Khamenei, and they are also chanting, down with the oppressor, be it the Shah or the supreme leader, signaling they are rejecting any form of dictatorship. So the point is, this time it feels different because this is an organized uprising. It's very much organized. There is an underground resistance network. It's called resistance units. There are thousands of them all over Iran. They are not allowing the protest to die down. They have a leadership. The leadership is a woman, Mrs. Mariam Rajavi. She has a platform. She has a 10-point plan, a very progressive plan. And she's committed to transferring the power after the mullahs are gone, transferring power to the people's elected representative within a maximum 6 months after the regime is overthrown. This would be through election for Constituent Assembly, which will draft a new constitution and oversee a provisional government. So you see there is an alternative there outside Iran, and there is a network of resistance inside Iran. That is why Khamenei is very scared. They cannot die down. Since the protest started, as I said, 180 cities. In Tehran yesterday, 30 locations, there were direct confrontation now with the suppressive forces. The protests have become increasingly confrontational. They are burning IRGC bases. They are setting their vehicles on fire. They have, people are determined to end the regime, bring Khamenei down. By any means, they are defending themselves. There are, in some cases, people have been defending themselves. There are armed self-defense. And many of, in this confrontation, a number of high-ranking officials within the security forces have been killed in the clashes. Some towns and cities have been liberated for hours, few hours. And you may have heard that a couple of days ago in Zahedan, the Baluchistan of Iran, Baluch women came out and chanted from Zahedan to Tehran, "My life is for Iran." So this is very much a well-organized nationwide uprising.
And Layla, obviously, the Ayatollah is saying this is being agitated by Donald Trump and by Westerners as a defense for their behavior. What would you say to that?
Being a pro doesn't start under the lights. It starts in the kitchen.
Well, that shows the regime is struggling to maintain control. There is panic. There is confusion. In particular, a couple of days ago, there was a leaked communication between the commanders of the regime, communication. One of them asked, urgently calling for reinforcement. The other one admits that there is no additional forces and says, oh, the situation is extremely tense. The clashes are spreading. Our units are exhausted. They are overwhelmed. This is the situation in the ground. This shows the regime is very weak and they are resorting to this rhetoric. The only problem we have is the fact that the regime this time is not just using violence, it is also using deception. How? The regime has managed to inject pro-monarchies, the former dictator, Shah's dictatorship, pro-monarchies slogans into the crowds in order to poison this uprising from within and basically make it weaker. And because nobody is going to come, people of Iran are not going to come to the streets for another dictator, Shah's son this time, to take over. So this is a deliberate attempt to promote monarchist slogan. In fact, they are kind of putting voiceover on the protests, on the slogans. People are not chanting any slogan for the Shah's son at all. They are actually calling, they are saying down with the oppressor, be it the Shah or the supreme leader. But then they dubbed. Unfortunately, there are some Farsi-speaking television channels in London who actually they are dubbing these video clips. You can see very clearly there is a video clip, and you can see there are the same video clip. People are chanting "Death with the dictator," but the other one is saying they're promoting the former dictator's son. And who benefits from that? Iranian regime. So this is the problem we have.
Leila, just quickly, I mean, it's a huge country. It's 90 million citizens. This uprising is crossing over the ethnic divides, the cultural divides in the country. It's men and women walking side by side. And as we know, women in Iran have been treated appallingly. There was one woman I was watching, she was walking down the street, her face covered in blood. And she said, I'm not afraid to die. I'm not afraid because I have been dead for 47 years under the Islamic Republic. There's a lot of brave people actually fighting against this regime, which has been in power, let's not forget, since 1979.
You're absolutely right. And I saw that clip that you are referring to. In fact, I have lost my husband myself as a result of atrocity. We are all victims of this regime. Everybody has lost somebody, a loved one, family member, extended family, friends. But what I was highlighting is that in this situation, we need unity. As I said, in Balochistan, east of Iran, there are ethnic minorities. Their women came out chanting in solidarity, challenging regime's narrative about separatism. Yes, there are women, there are men, there are people from all walks of life, all ages out. But unfortunately, Reza Pahlavi is an opportunist. While people are in the streets every night, and in some areas directly confronting the regime forces, he suddenly shows up, tell them, okay, come out on Friday and Thursday to chant. Or if you can't come out, stay at home and do it. And then he takes the credit for the protest. This is not something that Iranian people are chanting and wanting. They are saying death to the dictator, meaning any form of dictatorship.
Leila, thank you so much for joining. It's really important to have that insight into what's going on. And that's Leila Jazeeri there, who is our Association of Anglo-Iranian Women in the UK. Some very brave women in particular in Iran at the moment, and men who are fighting to overthrow the horror that they've been going through since 1979.
At Raising Cane's, we focus on making the most craveable chicken finger meals.
So as we're looking ahead as well here, Brian, that conversation is obviously going to be very important. But overall, we were hearing there as President Trump was answering the question and answer session of the meeting that he had, that round table with oil executives talking about Venezuela. There have been a lot of influences on that conversation, and also putting that in with Greenland, saying that the U.S. did decide to take some sort of military action that did change the course of how Venezuela is being governed, wondering if that would possibly happen. Can you sort of, again, you just said that you don't think the military action is going to happen, but why are these two conversations coming together at this time?
Because I think the world's looking at the United States and frankly wondering what the plan is. I think they understand that Donald Trump, who says and does what he says he'll do, is putting a protective ring essentially around the United States in Latin America. And now you're hearing about it in Greenland, where he worries, and we should all worry about Russian and Chinese influence there. And he is saying, hey, we need to have a wider ring to protect the United States. And, you know, the world's getting smaller and smaller. And so I think his calculus is then you move the lines out further to create a larger ring. Now, it's also true that, you know, Russia sits across the straits from Alaska. So they're pretty close to us there, and in other places around the world. But I think to the extent that some place may be in play, Greenland would be one place that would be in play because it's so desolate in so many ways. Again, a very small population, a protectorate or a territory of the Kingdom of Denmark, which is really far away from Greenland, and it kind of harkens back to hundreds of years ago, where the industrialized nations of the world basically colonized many places around the world. And there aren't many of those left, but Greenland is one of them.
I'm glad you brought up that sort of history that we also see. But again, President Trump did reiterate Russia and China's influence. Have they signaled at any point that they were willing to come into the island nation and possibly take over as well?
No, I don't think that as much as being around the island, stopping, working with the Greenlanders to port their ships there. All of this is a concern that I think Donald Trump is trying to get out in front of. He wants to cut off that. He also wants to establish, I think, several bases there, which would be part of a security force in that part of the world. It's sort of like we're in a very dynamic spot right now, Christina, as everybody knows. You've got the Venezuelan situation, which may impact Colombia, which may impact and probably is going to impact Cuba. So you've got all of that at play. You have the Iranian uprising right now. So you have a Middle Eastern situation going on. You've got Donald Trump's interest in closing Greenland off from the Russians and the Chinese. The president has his hands full, and I'm sure it's keeping Marco Rubio and the State Department quite busy.
And we've also heard from White House Deputy Chief of Staff of Policy, Stephen Miller, doubling down on President Trump's remarks, saying this week that the United States is the power of NATO, for the United States to secure the Arctic region and to protect and defend NATO. And NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be a part of the United States. And so there's a lot to unpack as we're going to continue to monitor this situation. Brian, any final thoughts before I let you go?
No, I would just reiterate that it's a very interesting time in world history, and you see so many things at play around the world. And again, I think it speaks to how the world is getting smaller and smaller relative to our ability to communicate on an instant basis around the world, to move our assets around the world, and because there's lots of things going on in the world right now, Christina, that all have some impact on the United States.
It's certainly something that we're going to keep our eye on heading into next week and those conversations, monitoring it all for you here on Live Now from Fox. Hopefully, Brian will join us again next week to help us break down the very latest after all of that concludes. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right, Brian and Christina with that interview earlier today. We appreciate them, by the way. Back out to us live now, live look at the White House on this Saturday evening, 7:45 in the nation's capital. Let's hit a quick break. We'll be right back.
Okay, for those of you who missed it, I'm going to play the long version of the book. I'll let you guys watch it. This is the one that will be released end of January. Hold on, switching over. So there you go, folks. That one will be released. There'll be a few more teaser videos coming out. And actually, Neil, it is probably, I guess you could say, it's kind of October 7th and 9/11 all rolled together. But I actually had the privilege of talking to some folks in various roles that were able to give me a bunch of insights. So,
died at the age of 78. We saw an official post put on social media moments ago from, I believe, his account.
Oh,
yes, at Bob Weir, saying it is with profound sadness that we share the passing of Bobby Weir. We sent him off the way he sent so many of us on our way, with a farewell that isn't an ending but a blessing, a reward for a life worth living, it says. The entire statement, I have it in front of me. It's a bit longer. This is only a piece of it that you're seeing on screen here. It is with profound sadness that we share the passing of Bobby Weir. He transitioned peacefully, surrounded by loved ones after courageously beating cancer, as only Bobby could. Unfortunately, he succumbed to underlying lung issues. For over 60 years, Bobby took to the road, a guitarist, vocalist, storyteller, and founding member of the Grateful Dead. Bobby will forever be a guiding force whose unique artistry reshaped American music. His work did more than fill rooms with music. It was warm sunlight that filled the soul, building a community, a language, and a feeling of family that generations of fans carry with them. Every chord he played, every word he sang was an integral part of the stories he wove. There was an invitation to feel, to question, to wander, and to belong. Bobby's final months reflected the same spirit that defined his life. Diagnosed in July, he began treatment only weeks before returning to his hometown stage for a 3-night celebration of 60 years of music at Golden Gate Park. Those performances, emotional, soulful, and full of light, were not farewells, but gifts. Another act of resilience, an artist choosing even then to keep going by his own design. As we remember Bobby, it's hard not to feel the echo of the way he lived. A man drifting and dreaming, never worrying if the road would lead him home. A child of countless trees, a child of boundless seas. There is no final curtain here, not really, only the sense of someone setting off again. He often spoke of a 300-year legacy, determined to ensure the songbook would endure long after him. May that dream live on through future generations of deadheads. And so we sent him off the way he sent so many of us on our way, with a farewell that isn't an ending, but a blessing, a reward for a life worth living. His loving family, Natasha, Monet, and Chloe, request privacy during this difficult time and offer their gratitude for the outpouring of love, support, and remembrance. May we honor him not only in sorrow, but in how bravely we continue with open hearts, steady steps, and the music leading us home. Hang it up and see what tomorrow brings. Bobby Weir, dead at the age of 78, being posted on his official accounts there. Some sad news as we sign off for the evening. I'm Austin Westfall, a live look at the White House, approaching 8 p.m. in the nation's capital. That is going to do it for our live coverage tonight. Our East Coast-based newsroom picks the coverage up tomorrow morning. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to a commercial break. On the other side of that, you will see our overnight playlist highlights from the day, including some of our top interviews. Have a good night.
Okay, moving over to some footage from Iran. This is over the last 24 hours. Okay, I got some extra footage here. Elon Musk stating, wow, uh, Eric Daughtry posted thousands of leftists chants Christina would hang, save a life, kill ICE. I'm going to play this for you guys so you can hear this. Okay, that's actually pretty funny. Yeah, there's no audio. That's just I am looking for more. I'm gonna jump back to. I'm gonna jump back to the news while I look for the other footage.
Block that agitator out of the crowd so no one else is injured, number one. But number two, you have the anti-protest crowd that's going to be out there. I know a couple cities, Minneapolis, Atlanta, Orlando, Miami, and I think LA are going to have counter protesters. So that's where the trouble starts. But, they're just going to be all hands on deck from the police angle to try to keep those folks as separated as possible.
What are you watching for the rest of the weekend? I mean, we've got our eyes on these protests. Is there anything else that you're keeping an eye on?
My biggest fear, I keep saying it, repeating myself, the bad actors or the agitators that aren't part. And like I said earlier, Austin, it doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with these folks, it's their right. And I welcome them to become a protest. But here's the deal. It's not part of your rights to go out and agitate or cause problems, or an anti-protester going into one of these peaceful protests just because you don't like it and start yelling and screaming. That's when the problems begin. And that's really what I look for as it gets dark. And especially tomorrow, these are going to be nationwide with just thousands of people in our homeland protesting. So you always have the bad apples, and let's hope that law enforcement's playing a heads-up game and they can find these people and get them out of the crowd before any violence.
Jamie Copenhaver is a law enforcement expert. We appreciate you, Jamie. Take care.
Always, Austin. Thank you.
Of course.
Want to talk much more about the video itself, so let's bring in Rob O'Neill, former U.S. Navy SEAL, credited with firing the shot that killed Osama bin Laden. Thank you so much, Rob, for taking the time to be here with us today.
Hello, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And first off, I did want to start by asking you if you can break down, as we look at that video, exactly what it does show and really what you see.
Well, the video, it's important to watch this version and any version you can see, because this is the hard truth of when reality meets fantasy. Because these agitators are told to agitate like that, and even the politicians who are desperately trying to cover their movements to avoid jail time, they're going to say anything they can just to get people to do anything to take the spotlight off of them. The officer that ended up firing the shots had been hit before and drugged before, and he is in a position. You got to figure, this is no longer the internet. This is no longer X, where we're exchanging with bots. Everyone there has family members that love them. You're now in a position as a protester where you cross a line, and you need to be willing to accept the consequences. This guy has family at home. You're in an adrenaline-packed moment. He's been drugged. He doesn't want to die. He was well within the law to take the shots she was aimed at him. And it kills me to see law enforcement kill Americans in this country. I wasn't there. Is the shooting justified? Yes. Should it have happened? Probably not. But there's a lot of factors in there. And it's not simply just a moment where we killed someone and now they're the martyr. She was there. The reason she was there, they were obstructing justice. Were they breaking the law to a point where there needed to be a fatality? Probably not. But here I am a few days later in a comfortable studio, and I can say that. I've been in positions before where you need to make life and death situations in the blink of an eye. And a bullet's always right. So you need to be very careful in the realization. People right now need to learn the difference between reality and the internet.
And it's important to note this video actually comes from the vantage point of what appears to be that ICE officer as you see it kind of all play out. How important is it to have bystander video there that shows situations like this, as well as really video and footage coming in from the law enforcement who are there? Because if you think about it, maybe 10, 20 years ago, that didn't exist. That wasn't really possible. You couldn't just whip out your phone and say, let me film this.
Oh, that's very true too, and that's also part of the problem with the body cams. Yes, you're seeing everything, but the problem is every politician and lawyer in the world can look at it 48 hours later and say, "Well, this was wrong." Who have never? I mean, these are people who, on their way to the law office, panic when it's their turn to order a latte. They've never been in a situation of life and death. This is a tragic moment, but the media, the politicians, the agitators, the people that are getting paid by different countries, everyone that's funding everything as far as the NGOs, there are bad actors behind this. And these people that go out there and protest are unfortunately what I refer to as the useful idiots. It started this way with the left and with a lot of the radical Muslims every single time. This is what happens, and it leads to one thing, and it inevitably, the socialism turns into communism, turns into Marxism, turns into fascism, all the stuff that they're talking about, and it always gets violent every single time. And the only people who don't get hurt are the people behind their keyboards.
One thing that I did want to make an important distinction here, and I wanted to get your take on it. We're not talking necessarily what we're seeing here about just general protesters. We're seeing more agitators out there. Can you kind of break down the difference there from folks that are maybe out there to peacefully protest versus those who are wanting trouble?
There are far fewer real protesters than paid protesters. We did one of the most amazing operations in the history of this country in Venezuela. A few hours later, in 4 major cities, there were protesters with the same exact signs. They need to follow the money. The real protesters they don't pop up in different cities because they even know where Venezuela is on a map. They probably don't even know it's in South America. And the agitators are just a tool. They're just a weapon. It's the same weapon as when you bring up a calm talking point that is the truth, and then someone starts saying racist, Islamophobe, you're anti-Semitic, anything. They don't have an argument, but that is their weapon. Islamophobe, 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 $9 billion fraud in Minnesota from the taxpayer. It's not hard to see. You just need to open your eyes and tell yourself the truth, and the truth comes in fewer words.
What do we need to watch for as the protests do kind of play out here and we see the investigation itself play out as well into that specific shooting?
Well, it's going to play out, but it's going to be skewed by everything. There's not going to be a lot of honest brokers here. Not everyone involved. Most people involved are just pushing a political agenda. This is just George Floyd 2026. It is. I cannot overemphasize how much it hurts me to watch Americans get killed in this country. And I wasn't there for either one of those. And there are always reasons why, but it shouldn't lead to death ever. And even in that position, I wasn't there. Would I have taken the shot? I doubt it, but it was legal. But it's going to get spun up to something that doesn't matter. It's going to turn into lawsuits. It's going to turn into political agendas. It's going to be brought up all the way and after the midterms. This is just how it always works. And the only way to get done with this is talking in education. A lot of this violent, and a lot of it's from the left. I mean, let's be honest. When you become too tolerant of everything, it turns into violence. And you're just seeing it. You're tolerant of everything, and then now you can't tolerate anything.
Rob, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and helping to discuss all of this. Of course, as you mentioned as well, it's going to play out for a little bit. The investigation here just getting underway. Anything we missed? Anything that you want to add before I let you go?
Well, I mean, I would just like it if everyone, instead of immediately typing or texting or shouting, just seriously take a deep breath. I'm giving myself my own advice right now. Take a deep breath, take a step back. It's a whole thing. Type that nasty email. Don't hit send for 24 hours. If it still bothers you, send it. It probably won't.
All right, Rob, thank you again for taking the time to join us here and helping to discuss all of this. I'm sure we'll have you back soon. Thank you again.
Anytime.
Okay, folks, so I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to go grab some dinner. If something else interesting happens, I will come back and share some more information with all of you. Until next time, I will see you all on my next live stream or video or Four Horsemen or whatever else we've got going on. You guys be careful out there. Plan your trips. If you're going to go to a city, please check. Make sure you don't get caught in one of those protests. You survive 100% of the fights you don't show up for. So you guys be safe, be careful, and I will see you on the next video.